This update is brought to you by the DC Defenders on the diamond. The Nationals fall in 10 innings today to the Phillies 6-5. They come back to DC following their first two road trips of the year, 3-3. The Nationals had a 5-1 lead today in the seventh inning after C.J. Abrams hit a 3-run homer in the top of the inning. The Phillies scored runs in the seventh and the eighth inning before tying it in the ninth with 2 runs down to their final strike. Justin Crawford with a walk-off single scored Brandon Marsh in the 10th. As the Phillies win to 6-5 in 10 innings. The Nationals have the day off tomorrow. Then they welcome the Dodgers for the home opener on Friday, 1:05 first pitch right here on the Fan. Hockey, the Capitals now just 3 points back of the Blue Jackets for the second wildcard spot with 7 games left to play after they beat the Flyers last night 6-4. Day off for the Caps. They'll take on the Devils tomorrow in New Jersey. NBA action tonight. The Wizards taking on the Sixers at Capital One Arena. 7 o'clock tip-off right here on the Fan. DC Spring Professional Football is back. Defenders versus Houston, April 11th, noon at Audi Field. Halftime, DC's own Wale Live, a championship banner, and hometown legend on the same day. Tickets at UFLDefenders.com. From the Crop Metcalf 5-Star Sports Desk, I'm Toby Altizer on the Fan.
Good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome into Grant and Danny live on the Fan, just about 5 o'clock in the DMV. We'll take you up to 6:30 this evening, 90 minutes from now, ahead of Wizards basketball right here on the Fan. A lot of Philadelphia for the DC sports teams.
Yeah.
Caps beat the Flyers last night. The Nats just dropped a game in Philly against the Phillies, lost that series. And now the 76ers in town to take on the Wizards.
I always think stuff like that is neat, and most people don't care at all. They'll wait for me to say the next thing. I go, hey, isn't this weird? Played the Flyers last night, a series in Philadelphia against the Phillies, and here come the 76ers the next night. What else? That's it. I have no other details. I think that sort of stuff is cool. No one else does.
It feels like there should be some type of like citywide, all sports teams get together and root for each other.
We just decided, yeah.
Like varsity sports where the boys basketball team is at home tonight against James Monroe, and the girls team is at James Monroe, and then you'll convene and talk about how you did against James Monroe. It's kind of that feel.
That's the vibe. And this is very much like you could use that on one of those progressive auto insurance commercials where you don't want to turn into your parents, where it's like that's the kind of novelty stuff that dads are into. Go, would you look at that? Look at that detail. They're playing the same city, different sports, same city. No one cares.
Sign of the times here. Maybe that the season has just begun. That's probably what this is in week 1. There's also an element of just the Nats playing a lot better baseball here than they did for the majority of last year, the last couple of years in terms of putting the ball in play, hitting, scoring, running the base paths, what have you. Certainly not defensively, where they're
not there.
Kind of carrying over from the old regime in terms of not fielding the ball clean enough. But it feels good to feel something, doesn't it, Hare? What's the line in Dumb and Dumber? I mean, we're watching this game in here, and we're ripping the phone book on strikeouts, and we're screaming after big swings. C.J. Abrams, 3-run home run in the 7th, looked like it was going to be enough. The Nats led by 4 going to the bottom of the 7th, 3 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th, before losing in extras. This was a painful loss. Doesn't seem like that big of a deal in the first week of the season, but the difference between going to Wrigley and going to Citizens Bank Ballpark in Philly and coming home after 6 against a couple likely playoff teams, 4-2 with a winning road trip, entering your home opener against the vaunted Dodgers Friday at Nationals Park. The difference between that 4-2 and that 3-3 feels pretty large. Now, still a successful road trip. Sight unseen, Danny Rouillet, myself, anybody listening, you're probably signing up for that road trip.
100%, but man, when you had it in your grasp. If you just had lost a game 6-5, and it's normal, orthodox, they'd gone back and forth and they'd taken a lead, you couldn't quite come back, whatever, like they lost the game last night, 3-2. That's a good baseball game. James Wood hits a tracer to left field. Marsh makes a nice play to end it. Hey, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Oh, you had this one. You had the big moment. You had the thing that you wanted. You are winning. You've got a multi-run lead. So one little blast doesn't do you in, right? Even a couple don't do you in. It took a lot. Anatomy of a big inning a couple times, a bunch of walks. You're playing matchups. You don't just have one dude that makes $80 million to come in and throw 104 with ungodly movement. You're playing the matchups, and it didn't go for you that time because, frankly, they've got better players than you do. And it's very easy to just have a dude that you put in the lineup every day. It's harder to do what the Nats are doing, but they're competing. It's both good because they were in position, but it's also gut-wrenching when it's their defense let them down, and it just kind of didn't work.
I actually think there is a lesson here to be had, to your point, which is you don't have the margin for error as a ball club with the talent that you have or don't have right now to play a C baseball game on the road against a good team and win. You were on your way, but it's not going to happen if you don't clean it up as you go. And so you want to boot the ball around? You want to one-hop Luis Garcia, who's not a first baseman, trying to play first base?
Yeah, clearly.
C.J. Abrams, Nasim Nunez today doing that? You're going to have defensive problems in the late innings against the Phillies and give them extra outs? They're going to make you pay. And between that and, as you said, the bullpen coming in and walking the yard, 3 walks from Poulin and Henry, 4 hits allowed in the final inning of the ball game by your relievers, that's how you lose. And so it's a good lesson. It's an early season lesson. The expectations have not really changed. They are what they are for this Nationals team. This is a year about development. But so far, I do like what I see from the staff a whole lot. And I'm encouraged by a lot of things in terms of pre-game decision-making, lineup construction, honestly, bullpen usage. The one question I have before we move on from today, as far as Blake Butera goes, is end of the ball game, Danny. They have a 9th inning opportunity to put the game away. Clayton Beater's pitching with 1 out. Lefties are coming up. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, 2 and 3 in the Phillies order. The same guys he retired as the opener yesterday, going left on left in the first inning. And for the first time all year, Butera asks a reliever to pitch consecutive days. And it's P.J. Poulin. Poulin comes in to slam the door, and he's not able to. He goes walk, pop out, walk. And he gives the ball to Cole Henry because you don't want P.J. Poulin without great stuff facing the righties in the middle of the Phillies order. Hindsight has become wisdom here, but it's obvious that they don't really view the 9th inning as closer time. They don't really view the world through the lens of baseball over the last 20 years where it's been, hey, you need a 9th inning guy who's going to slam the door, who's going to get those outs. They're going to play matchups. Sometimes they like Beater's slider fastball combo. Sometimes they're going to like Cole Henry's heavy sinker to get ground balls. And in this case, with lefties, they were giving the ball to P.J. Poulin. This was the first chance where you really saw, is Beater their closer? Did they just want him to go get the save? And they chose matchups left on left. It backfired on them in this case. I don't necessarily hate it. It's the analytical play. But that's something to monitor to me going forward. Are you going to have a closer or not? Or is everything about matchups? And today, they clearly thought everything was about matchups.
Yeah, I would like it to not be automatic. And again, I'm not screaming about the decision, but I would go, let me see what Clayton Beater's 100 with the nasty wipeout slider. Let's see what that can do against anybody. Because he told us in spring training, if I throw my pitch the way that I can throw it, nobody hits me. I don't care who it is. And he's right. I think his stuff's that good. I would have loved a chance for him to just shut the door. You're not playing matchups with Yohan Duran. You're not doing that with a lot of the elite back end of the game arms. I'm not saying that Beater's arrived at that level yet, but for a team that's experimenting and finding stuff out, what better showcase for him, right, to step on the road as everyone's screaming and yelling? He nails that inning down, to say for the sake of argument. He gets the save in a really tough environment. Okay, you rack up a few of those. Now you got a closer. You know what you have? A great trade chip that anybody in this league would want because you did the thing where you bought him at a bargain from the Yankees organization and you turn him into a bona fide closer or a back-end reliever for a good team. You fixed him. You turned the profit. You did the thing. I would have given him the chance. But again, they're living and dying by this way of doing it, and I respect that. It's like if you go play blackjack at MGM, and you go, I'm gonna go by the book, except this one time where I go with my gut. That's not how you do it. The most successful way to do it is you either do it or don't, and they clearly are going in one direction.
So, and this is the point I always make with Dan Campbell in the analytics on 4th down with the Detroit Lions, where people get so upset when he over and over again goes for the 4th and 1 and the 4th and 2, and they're like, but in that game situation, you can't do it. The numbers say if you do it all the time, you will score more points doing it his way than the other way. if you pick and choose when you do it, sometimes we'll do it based on gut feel, sometimes we won't. Are my guys tired? What is the weather today? Then you don't know. You're just grabbing basically ducks to look at the bottom to see if there's an X under them for the 51% of the time it's going to work or whatever. You might grab all the ducks that don't have the X under them. You need to pull 100 ducks to get to the 51%. You got to pull all the ducks. And so, yes, I think in both of these cases, it's kind of the same truth, which is if you're going to do it, you got to do it. And you got to lean all the way in. They're going to be right sometimes. They're going to be wrong sometimes. But I think also some of this is you're cutting corners. Like if you had a major league closer on your roster, if you're the Orioles and you went and got Ryan Helsley,
Yep.
if you spent $20 million a year on someone who throws 102.
This is my point.
I mean, Yohan Duran for the Phillies, what you're saying, like, yeah, you just go to that guy. But because you don't have that person, Clayton Beeter, as you said, you're going to build him and try to trade him, I guess, in your philosophy.
Yep.
He's getting his first save chances now. Cole Henry's getting his first save chances now. So I don't mind matchups over guys that you're hoping are closers you don't know are closers. Chris in Hyattsville wants to hop in before we pivot out of Nats baseball here into our G&D 90 minutes of power on the Fan today. What's up, Chris? How are you?
Hey guys, I'm making this call under duress because I got a Dennis Scott flying around in my car right now.
Oh boy,
that's a
I hope you don't
great
get
pull.
Sung.
No Travis Best.
There's a Calvin Johnson just sneaking up behind me right now. So I totally agree with the idea of like no defined roles. There's no 8th inning guy, 9th inning guy, a la Frank Robinson back in the day or whatever. That's fine. But they're playing the matchups because they don't have an elite arm. That's why they're trying to maneuver these matchups because it's the best they can do. And we knew at the beginning of the year that the bullpen was going to be an Achilles heel of this team. I think it's a shame, though, because we're one good arm away from having beaten two playoff teams, expected playoff teams in back-to-back series.
Yeah, they're right there in these games. I mean, I'll give them credit for that. So they lose 2 of 3 to the Phillies, but last night it's a 1-run game. Today it's an extra innings 1-run game that you led by 4 in the 7th, 3 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th, before dropping in 10. So it's not like even in the you're 3-3, but you got exposed and you looked like you were supposed to 2 or 3 times, or you just got rocked. I mean, they have been right there at the finish line in 5 of these 6 games to this point against last year's playoff teams.
That's as good as anybody.
They're probably going to be back in the playoffs this year. I think this Dodgers series is going to be telling as well. Now, it's not going to be quite the litmus test it could have been, and that's a good thing, by the way, because you're going to miss Shohei Ohtani, who pitched last night. He was sparkling in 6 shutout innings. You're going to miss their top 2 pitchers, in fact, because Yoshi Yamamoto, who was dominant all the way through the World Series in October last year, is also not going in this series. So you're going to catch 3, 4, and 5, which for the Dodgers is still like, the number 1 starters for the Nationals.
Yep.
Any of those guys versus Cade Cavalli on paper is like a fun little matchup. Clearly, the Dodgers aren't catching Cavalli because he was outstanding over 6 innings today against the Phillies. But you get 3, 4, and 5 of the Dodgers. If you could take 2 of 3 from them and you're 5-4 through those 9 games, they'd be one of the better stories in baseball a week and a half into the season. If you take 1 and you're 4-5, I think that's still very respectable and frankly about what you should have hoped for in these 9 games. So they're positioning themselves okay. I care more about the process and just how they're playing. And with the exception of the defense, which was rough in both of these series, and they have to clean that up. There's way too many errors. And then non-errors that are actual miscues that don't go down in the book as an error, but it's like you got to throw
balls
the right
that at the major league level have to be double plays are not.
Hasn't
multiple
been a double
times.
play.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times so far this season. The other stuff is much, much better. And the approach on offense, the number of balls they're putting in play, the lack of swing and miss for a lot of these guys, lot to like, I would say, in the early going here.
Yeah, there are more positives than people thought. I mean, Cade Cavalli lost in the sauce here. A really good start. He pitches well against Philadelphia. That's fun to piggyback what we saw, some promising things from opening day. Their first turn through the rotation, again, maybe better than you thought. How good was Foster Griffin the other night? So to me, this has been a positive trip overall, but damn, it feels worse. Right? It's like that, again, I already mentioned gambling. Let's say you won your first 5 bets, then the last bet of the night seemed like a sure thing, and then it gets ripped away from you by some sort of craziness. That's what that feels like. It's a worse trip home, obviously, by a wide margin than if they'd won today.
Quick reminder, we'll be at Tap 99 Sports Bar outside of the center field gate right after the game from the home opener. So as you leave Nats Park after they play the Dodgers on Friday. We're going to be out there, and we'll be kicking it until the end of our show at 6:30. It'll be a fun little Friday. I know B. Mitch and Finley are going to be posted up before the game at Tap 99, so you can hang out with the fan before and after the game just outside of the center field gate. I wanted to get into something I saw last night. So I went back and I watched all the Adam Peters content. We got some clips during our show of what he had said out in Phoenix, but then there were a lot of other interviews that trickled out. He went on a little media tour with Kay Adams of FanDuel and a bunch of other outlets. But one of the comments that was posted by Nikki Javala of The Athletic caught my attention, where he went into the wide receiver room, something that I think is actually probably being under-talked about right now, other than when we just say it's a need, they might draft somebody at 7. We haven't really drilled down too much on the guys they actually have and the potential development of those players. But this was Peter's State of the Union on the Commanders wide receivers this week out in Phoenix.
How do you feel the receivers room is now? Is that a place where you still would like to add? Or kind of, what's your view of it?
Yeah, I mean, really every room is a room we'd still like to add. I mean, it's March 30th right now. So, but in terms of that room specifically, I mean, obviously we have Terry, and Terry's number one receiver. We brought Traylon back, which I'm really excited about. I think he's got another level to go to. He showed us a lot, and at practice and in the games when he was able to make some plays there. Luke and Jalen, another couple guys that are, being a year older and we're excited about, and then bringing Diami back and Van. We have a couple young guys in there too. So I like the room right now, but I think just like everywhere, we have a lot of time to add before we play in September.
So there's a few things I heard in that answer that he didn't say, but reading the tea leaves here that I wanted to get to. The first is he talks about Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 1, and then immediately mentions Traylon Burks. I think we're probably sleeping a little bit on the potential of Traylon Burks, who has massive size, who was a first-round pick, mid-first round, and low, right at the outside of the top 20. Made the catch of the year maybe in the entire NFL last year in the end zone.
Incredible.
And then after that, you saw that they were actually designing looks for him in the final few weeks when he was healthy of the season, where they were just running him on those like sideline routes, trying to make back shoulder throws. They were trying to test his catch radius, I thought. Didn't you? Like they were trying to see what is he capable of.
Yeah, what can he do?
You and I wanted him to use the end of the season to put some feelers out on guys, and clearly one of the players they were evaling was Traylon Burks. Who they subsequently brought back, who is not lost on me, the second guy that he mentioned. He mentioned him as like an outside option. We know that they view Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane as more in the slot. Dan Quinn said as much this week. Peters links those two together. We've got Luke, we've got Lane. So I'm hearing him answering Danny, and his vision is of the field, and he's going, Terry McLaurin on one side, Traylon Burks on the other, Luke or Lane in the slot, and then he throws in your depth guys of Diami Brown and Van Jefferson. But the forgotten man here a little bit is Traylon Burks. And I do think that if the right receiver is there at 7, they could take that player. I think it's more likely they don't do it there, and at 75 they get a receiver who comes in and might play pretty quickly, pushes or surpasses Traylon Burks on the outside. But if they were lining up for a game today, out of that answer last night, I think it's Burks opposite Terry, not Diami, not Jefferson, not any of those other guys. It's Luke or Lane, whoever wins a competition in the slot. McCaffrey probably has, the better chances going into the competition. And I think they are hopeful that Traylon Burks could still turn into a really good player, like the Titans once thought he was going to be when they drafted him. Are we under talking about the upside of Traylon Burks?
So I still think it's the biggest need on the team. You know what I mean? So but
that's not different than, that can be true. And what I'm saying is a different conversation.
Right. Well, to me, we're just saying the names of people. There's 37 catches between those 3 guys. If you had in Diami Brown's banner 20 catch season, you've got 57 among 4 guys that played a combined, 40 some games between them. Not much production at all. So what he's doing to me is saying, no, we like what we got, because that's what they have. He's not going to say this group stinks and they're reprehensibly bad and we should all be embarrassed and we went after Alec Pierce for a huge, obvious reason. It just got a little bit too rich for our blood and they didn't pick us.
But Diami Brown is not 6'2.5" and 224 pounds. And he's not a former 18th overall pick.
No.
If Burks had been healthy in his career throughout and had never produced, I'd be willing to say this guy's not that helpful. And he is a depth piece. Bring him in with his size to play basically how he did for Washington last year, red zone, back shoulder stuff, whatever. But we've never really seen him for any extended period of time completely healthy.
That is true.
I'm just wondering, and it's all based on that comment from AP yesterday. Is it possible that they think Treylon Burks might be something? Now, I would tell you that they would have signed him to a multi-year deal for a lot of money if they were sure of that. But you're not doing that yet. It's just a flyer because he hasn't proven it.
Yeah, I still think it's more Flyer territory. I think it's more Philadelphia Flyers at this point than it is we're counting on this guy, right? I mean, again, the proof to me is they went after Alec Pierce, they went after Dobbs, and weren't successful in getting either of them. I understand that happens. That they have to pick you too, but I think this is hey, we like this. Well, of course you like him enough, as you said, to sign him to a prove-it deal, a flyer deal, because that's what it's worth at this point. For a team that has designs of competing a little bit, there's no downside in having Treylon Burks. You don't owe him anything. It's not like, if you paid him, I'm just making this up, if you paid him $25 million, that's your number 2 receiver. That's it. No one else, it's not even worth asking about. This, now I think their options are open for another Noah Brown training camp cut kind of thing if the receiver position breaks their way in the draft. But I don't feel the same bullishness from them based on maybe surrounding circumstances. I think what he was doing is basically saying, yeah, to your point, if we had to go play a game today, this is kind of how we'd roll it out, and we feel okay about that. I mean, sort of justifying what they've done or not done.
If you're looking for proven commodities, you shouldn't look at anybody other than Terry McLaurin in their receiving room. There's no doubt about that. And if that's what it's going to take for you to feel good, someone that you know is going to go out there and perform and produce, well, keep it moving because Washington's not for you, basically. But there are a lot of worse spots in terms of having a room with some guys with some potential. Luke McCaffrey is only 24 years old, was coming on last year when he got hurt. Jalen Lane is going to go into year 2, is only 23 years old, and Treylon Burks is just 26 years old, will not turn 27 until next offseason. So you've got 3 guys 26 or under. Burks was drafted in the top 20. Lane was drafted in round 4. McCaffrey was drafted in round 3. They've still got upside with those players. Now, I'm way less intrigued or interested in Van Jefferson because we know what he is.
We've done that.
He's 30. This is a known commodity. De'Ami Brown, I would tell you I've seen enough of as well. I'm a season away with Luke McCaffrey from being able to put in pen what I think he is or isn't as a player. But I don't think we're there yet. So my question to you guys is this. 800-636-1067. I don't think anybody would debate that wide receiver is the biggest offensive need for Washington. But do you think that maybe they feel better about the young guys in their building than we do externally? And could they be right? Could McCaffrey or Lane turn into a really solid slot option this year? Could Treylon Burks, if healthy and with 17 games, turn into a 50-plus catch, 600-yard, big physical wide receiver 2 opposite Terry McLaurin at a really, really cheap number in terms of the cap? I think they're going to draft a receiver at 71. You and I have talked a lot about the possibility of maybe even taking Carnell Tate at number 7. But if they like Burks, if they feel good about McCaffrey,
then they don't feel
Lane,
the pressure, yeah.
then 7 is probably a little bit too rich. 71 makes a lot more sense because you kind of mix that guy into the flow with the other kids. If Terry walks next year, maybe that guy is then ready to take over with a bigger role. But it's just a matter of how sure are they, how confident are they in the guys that they have. Because it's very much a 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other kind of debate to me, where I think you could look at Luke McCaffrey and go, it's been 2 years. His catch totals so far have been 18 and 11. Now, he got hurt, obviously, in 9 games last receivers in this league who have been off to starts like McCaffrey or like Lane who have had really, really good careers. It doesn't always happen like this at that position.
Especially when you were quarterback like 3 years ago.
In his case,
in
definitely.
McCaffrey's case, yeah.
We'll get to the phones on this next. 800-636-1067. Talking to wide receivers for the Commanders on Grant and Danny.
What's up, guys? Danny Rouillet here. We got a couple of Natty TV games, some other pro hoops tonight as well. Let's take a look at the latest pro basketball injury report presented, as always, by Fanatic Sportsbook. A major Eastern Conference tilt tonight. Darris will be glued to it. Boston, Miami, tip-off at 7:30. For Boston, for Darris' Celtics, all eyes are on star player Jason Tatum. He sat out Monday's game as the team is managing his workload to coming back from that really nasty Achilles injury, so he's going to be a game-time decision. For Miami, Norman Powell remains listed as day-to-day as he deals with an upper respiratory illness. Miami will need all the help they can get, having lost 7 of their last 8 and dropping to the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference. And later on, San Antonio, Golden State. 2 players listed for Golden State's injury report. That's Quentin Post and Will Richard. Both players are ruled out. Both players, rather, were ruled out of the team's previous game on Sunday and are listed as day-to-day. No injuries to report for San Antonio. They've already clinched and will likely enter the playoffs as the 2 seed in the Western Conference. That's today's injury report. Listed all season long for weekly injury updates presented by Fanatic Sportsbook, the home of fair play. Download the app today. Winning hits different with Fanatic Sportsbook. I've been telling you for so many months, and now they're headed toward the postseason. Every game carries a little more weight, so don't wait for that what-if moment. Switch to the sportsbook that protects all pro basketball player props across straights, parlays, same-game parlays across any first-half entry. That's right. If betting player props is something you love doing, points, assists, rebounds, steals, blocks, whatever, Fanatic Sportsbook's Fair Play Insurance gives you the edge when it comes to cooking up that parlay. Some books protect you for just the first quarter, some to nothing at all. But not at Fanatic Sportsbook, where they flip losing bets into winning bets on every night on the court. That means if your player gets injured in the first half, your bet will play on with all the remaining legs, meaning a loss can be turned into a win. Others copy trends. Fanatic Sportsbook set standards. Fair play keeps every first half protected. So bet with the book that always has your back. Fanatic Sportsbook. Winning hits different here. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. MD visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
This update is brought to you by Reynolds and Power Home Team, Keller Williams Realty. In baseball earlier today, the Nationals fell to the Phillies in 10 innings, 6-5. The Nationals took a 5-1 lead with C.J. Abrams hitting a 3-run homer in the top of the 7th inning, but the Phillies would chip away in the 7th and the 8th with leadoff homers in each inning before they tied it with 2 runs in the 9th inning. And Justin Crawford walked off the Nationals with a single, scoring Brandon Marsh in the 10th. As the Phillies win 6-5 and take the series, the Nationals return home 3-3 through their first 2 series. They'll now welcome the Dodgers for the home opener on Friday at 1:05. Hockey, Capitals now just 3 points back of the Blue Jackets for the second wildcard spot. 7 games left to go after they beat the Flyers last night 6-4. They'll take on the Devils tomorrow. Basketball, the Wizards at home taking on the Sixers tonight. 7 o'clock tip-off right here on The Fan. Want to hear the fastest way to know what your home would sell for? Reach out to Empower Home Team. Simply text your address to 800-763-3000. No phone call. Just text your address to 800-763-3000. That's 800-763-3000. From the Crop Metcalf 5-Star Sports Desk, I'm Toby Altizer on The Fan.
Wide receiver is a big need. Is it as big a need as we all seem to think it is? That's the question. Adam Peters meeting with the media in Phoenix, addressing the position. He's always going to sell the players on the roster as guys he really likes. He came on our show during training camp a couple years ago and told us how much Emmanuel Forbes had improved. Now remember, he didn't draft Forbes. He inherited him. Forbes was cut within several weeks after that.
Yeah, it was 6 weeks later.
And as a GM, unless you're Dave Dombrowski saying Bryce Harper doesn't have it anymore, your job is publicly to build your guys up. I understand that. But name-checking Treylon Burks the way he did, almost like wide receiver 2, and then linking Lane and McCaffrey together as slot guys, I actually think they've got a vision for the room where the outside guys are pretty well entrenched on paper. It's McLaurin, Burks, Brown, Van Jefferson. And then Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane are vying for time getting reps in the slot. I just think maybe they view it as less an urgency to go get a baller. They tried to get Alec Pierce, so we know they want somebody. They tried to get Romeo Dobbs, but they have subsequently signed a couple of veterans. Do we think they'd sink their teeth into a wideout at 7? I think this is more a 71 solution. I felt that way all along. And then you think about it after Peters talks, Burks being 26, Lane going into year 2 being only 23, McCaffrey still being 24 for a few more days. I could absolutely see them at 7 looking at Carnell Tate and something else and going, we don't need to get a star wide receiver here. We could get one that helps us that we like a lot in the 3rd round.
Because I just wonder what their pathway is to get one. Like, you look at free agency. I'll say it no more than Alec Pierce just got $30 million. Good ones don't become available. Good tackles don't become available. Most of the time, good pass rushers don't become available. This was a rare year, but even still, you're paying for upside for the most part. It's rare to have a Hendrickson or a Max Crosby available.
To that point, Chris Olave is supposed to be a free agent at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
What did we find out last night? The Saints and Olave are talking on an extension.
That's right.
Now, let's say they don't get one done. They'll tag him. The Falcons are going through the same thing with Drake London. Drake London's supposed to be a free agent. We did this on a Take Command mailback a couple weeks ago where somebody hit me up and asked on Instagram, Grant H. Paulson, Danny's at Funny Danny. They said, hey, what's the chances that they're putting their eggs in the basket for next year in Drake London at wide receiver? And my point is, he's not going to be available. Wide receiver 1s do not hit the market.
Yeah.
George Pickens, everybody paying attention? He got tagged. You could be tagged multiple times. So you're right. If you want a stud, you almost have to draft one early, but they might feel like in this class...
And this might not be the year for it.
There's only 3 receivers that are going to go in round 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to get a really, really good wideout at 71. That might be how they feel.
If you don't love Tate, Lemon, or Tyson, the guys that are the first rounders, I guess Omar Cooper might go in the first round too from Indiana, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, if you don't love a player, you don't just do it to do it, right? Now, if you happen to like Tate maybe as much as I do, then you wouldn't hesitate about it because that position is so valuable. The numbers that you just saw from Jackson Smith and Jigba, unbelievable players, so great. I'm not saying that Tate's JSN, but bear with me, another Ohio State product. But they just got one of the great bargains in the sport. We talk about this with quarterback. You now need to start talking about it in terms of that, where this position value of tackles, pass catchers, pass rushers is so enormous. Guys are getting 35, 40. That's not going down either. $50 million a year to do these things after 4 or 5 years in the league. You getting that value for the first handful of years of their career cannot be measured properly. So if you've got one that's good enough, you just do it there.
Yeah. If Carnell Tate's 5th on their big board, he's going 7. If he's 8th or 9th on your big board, he's probably going 7.
And if he's not,
if he's 16, if he's 18 or something,
you go.
Like he's the number 1 receiver for them, let's say, hypothetically, but he's the 18th player on their board because they got 4 linemen they like more ahead of him with better grades or whatever, then you're not taking him at 7. And I don't think it's just based on that grade, although it primarily would be. It's just not exclusively that.
A couple spots on the quote-unquote big board that positional value, and if they subscribe to it, you assume they do, puts a big asterisk next to it, right? Where that guy's that much more valuable, whatever percentage you want to put on it, than your typical normal off-ball linebacker.
Totally. And if you like a guy enough, who cares?
Right.
Like if you're picking at 7 like they are, and you've got a guy who is 12th on your board, but you're, all the positions that you need, players have been taken at, it's not that crazy because you don't get another chance to get that guy or something. But yeah, I feel like maybe they like the kid receivers a little bit still. They drafted Lane, that was their guy. They drafted McCaffrey, that was their guy. They claimed Burks, that was their guy.
Yep.
And
that's a good point.
It's not like all 3 of them haven't flashed a little bit. I don't even mean as a punt returner for Jalen Lane, but he had a couple of really nice plays at receiver. Down the field, 30-plus yard catches last year. McCaffrey, in one of his final games before he got hurt, I think it was his penultimate game he played in, had that 50-yard diving catch against the Chargers. Had the long touchdown in prime time against the Bears on the fake bubble. Of course, Burks with the highlight play in the end zone, but he can't be Noah Brown in this offense. Running dig routes, boxing people out with size, I think he could definitely be that guy. Chris in Silver Spring, you're on G&D. What's going on?
How you doing, fellas?
Hey, bud.
Yeah, so you may not be too pleased with what I'm about to say here, but I got to say it. In regards to McCaffrey, I was never big on him. Being picked from Rice, third round, 100 overall, I just thought it was a bad pick off the break. And it just, to talk about the elephant in the room, it was a clear case of nepotism if I ever saw it. I just felt like from the beginning, he was only there because of Adam Peters' connection to the 49ers and Luke and his brother McCaffrey at the 49ers. And they gave this kid a shot because of that. And
I think that's true. I don't think he gets drafted if he is Luke McAllister. I think that's probably true. He got drafted earlier than everyone thought he was going to be. Remember, the grades were likely 5th, maybe in the 4th, and then he got taken what was essentially
end of the 3rd, beginning of 4,
3rd plus, right, at 100 overall. But let's not pretend like bloodlines are irrelevant, too. I know we have these nepotism conversations generally outside of sports where, like, if we're talking about the broadcast booth or something, Ian Eagle, Noah Eagle, Joe Buck, Jack Buck, or what have you, a lot of times the kid of the broadcaster is really good because they grew up around it.
Yep.
They watched their dad do it at a very, very high level. It's what they talked about at dinner. Noah's pretty damn good. Joe Buck's pretty good. In the case of sports, Jackson Holliday goes 1-1. If you got Matt Holliday as your dad and your hitting coach, it helps. I mean, a lot of these guys, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., like there's something to be said.
Yes,
for,
that's not what nepotism is. It's the guy that doesn't deserve it getting the shot. So, so if his point is they were riskier because his last name was McCaffrey, yeah, they were. So I think that's fair. But it's not like they're doing a favor to the old man. You know what I mean?
But he's saying, I think correctly, nepotism is a pejorative, right? It's the negative version of it,
right,
where like, you have no business having this job. You only got this because of your last name. I think two things can be true. I do think because Adam Peters has a great relationship with Christian McCaffrey, knows that he is the ultimate pro, leave it all on the field, best teammate in the building, guy you want to build your organization around, comes from a family where his dad was an NFL wide receiver. They grew up training since they were 6 years old to play in the league. I think that all factored in. And yeah, the fact that he knows the family. That should factor in, by the way, in my opinion. Like, you're more likely to be right. You're betting millions of dollars on whether or not this guy's going to have the mental intangibles, the work habits. You know, that other stuff is almost as important. His physical traits are incredible. His RAS score, the relative athletic score and some of that stuff is phenomenal. So the stuff you're trying to bet on in the draft is the stuff you would imagine that carries over from Ed and Christian. So I didn't have a problem with that. But was he overdrafted? It certainly looks like it. And I'm not going to knock someone calling in here saying they haven't seen enough. The guy's played 2 years. He got hurt last year, but it's 26 games, 29 catches. That speaks for itself, frankly.
Yeah,
He
the
needs
production
to
hasn't been there.
produce a lot more, or else this is kind of year 3, Danny. This is it. Like if you get to the end of this year and you're the same guy, well, you're not a starting receiver in the league. You're probably a special teamer for a long time.
So the narrative changed. I mean, year one, it was, hey, look at the metrics. He's getting open, but he's not getting the ball, but no one cared because the offense was good, right? Year two, that wasn't the story. You know what I mean? It wasn't the, hey, he can't throw it to himself. This is are we sure? This is a major prove-it year for him. And so it all depends. Like, I kind of had this conversation last year about Ben Sinnott. I'm going, at some point, I need to see one way or the other. Their actions told me that they saw. Right? They don't care about winning or losing with Ben Sinnott.
Even at a dependent position, it gets to a point where when they're not throwing you the ball, it is an indictment.
Yeah.
It's not just that you're always the victim of circumstance. If Jamar Chase is out there, I bet you they're throwing to him. Eventually, you just find a way to be involved if you're really, really good. So, yeah, and I think that's the default setting, by the way. I'm not saying anyone should be looking at Luke McCaffrey going, this guy's about to catch 70 balls in the slot. That's not how I feel.
Right.
My point is, it's their guy that they drafted. Has their opinion changed in any way? Do they still look at him or Lane and say, we've got a legitimate slot receiver, we don't need to address that in the draft? Do they look at Treylon Burks and say, we've got a wide receiver too that people don't know about yet? People aren't sure how good this guy is. We know he's really, really good. Because if you feel that way, add some more talent at 71, but you don't have to do it at 7. You probably can go Caleb Downs there. You can take the edge that's going to set you up for long-term success with a Dafe if it falls into your lap. You can go Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love or a bulk position on the defensive line or something. 800-636-1067. What do you think Peters thinks of the wide receiver room? That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of on Grant and Danny.
What's up, guys? Grant and Danny here. Spring. Oh, it has arrived, and it's a great time to open those windows up. Do your windows not open easily? Do they leak? Are they broken? Do they need repairing again? The pros of Window Nation can help you get new, energy-efficient windows at a fantastic price. Window Nation's The More You Buy, The More You Save sale is going on right now this minute. You could save up to 50% off all the windows for your home. You could also get them with 0% interest financing for 5 years.
Amazing offer. This is what they do. Amazing deals all the time. This one's better, though, and it's ending soon, so you better take advantage, like I have, like Danny has. 50-point inspection of every window before it leaves the factory. 20-point inspection of every window when it's installed. Your new windows get installed in a day or less. 96% customer satisfaction rating. Over 45,000 five-star reviews. I've done one. Danny's done one. Hurry, the sale ends soon. Call 866-90-NATION. Schedule a fast, free consultation. 866-90-NATION or shop at windownation.com. The Wizards play just after 7 tonight on the Fan. We're Grant and Danny. We'll take you up to pregame a little bit after 6:30. Tomorrow's show is shaping up to be a very good one, by the way. We're going to have Jason Sinaraji, the new president of business operations over with the Washington Nationals, on the show. They've got their home opener coming up at Nats Park on Friday. We'll also catch up with John Keim, who was in Phoenix, Arizona, covering the Commanders. Going to be a busy 4+ hours. Full show tomorrow, sandwiched between a couple of truncated programs because the Nats play day games.
Good usage of truncated right there, my friend. Tip of the old cap. Do you have a bell for when you say the word truncated?
I don't have a bell for that.
You don't have a bell? It's right over there?
But that's not what that bell's for.
Oh, it's not?
That's the bell we hit when we go talk to Jay in Virginia Beach.
That's the Jay in Virginia Beach bell?
Jay, what's up, buddy? How are you?
What's up?
Wow, I have my own bell.
Isn't that nice, dude? How cool is that?
Yeah, so I had a little bit that I was going to talk about Luke McCaffrey. He does need help getting open. You have to run creative plays for him to get open. Once he has the ball in the open field, he's good. But on the other hand, he was on his way to the Pro Bowl as a kick returner last year, and he's a really good downfield blocker.
Yeah, he was the NFL's best kick returner at the time of his injury last season. Now, I don't know how much of that was him and how much of that was they had a really good thing going on special teams in the return and blocking games with their special teams coach. Izzo put on a clinic, I thought, because whether it was him or it was Deebo Samuel, didn't matter really who they put back there. They were breaking off
good
big-time returns. It felt like every week they were ripping the return across the 40 or 45-yard line. But yeah, Luke showed that he could do that, I thought, in a way that was pretty effective. But I disagree with his point on what he is as a receiver. I haven't been all that impressed after the catch. Like, he had the one nice catch and run I mentioned against the Bears for the touchdown, but I can't really picture making guys miss, breaking tackles. I've been a little bit surprised with the lack of that after the catch. His scores on separation and getting open, particularly in his rookie year, were very good.
We're good.
Now, that can be scheme-related, and David Blau's job is literally to get receivers open. But so far, I would say, especially as a cerebral guy from the quarterback position, operating against zone, when to throttle things down, when to just kind of make yourself presentable for the quarterback and just look back at him. I like him in that way more than I do the post-catch stuff, oddly.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. You haven't seen much wiggle or explosion, or it's just sort of like the catch happens, and I'm going to matriculate forward, but there's going to be some contact, right? There's not a lot of, oh my God, how do you do that? How do you make that guy miss? That's just not part of his game.
Which is what you would assume from a former quarterback at receiver. I mean, there aren't a long line of those guys per se, but generally when you were a pocket-passing, bigger, athletic quarterback who turned receiver, you wouldn't imagine them being shifty or dynamic. But that's not really what he was supposed to have been, as I mentioned with his athletic score and things. Like he is a guy, theoretically, you are expecting to make some people miss and be shiftier than we've seen. Kevin in Arlington, you are on the Fan. What's going on, brother?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. This is a great conversation. And I'm going to be the first to say I am Mr. PTSD when it comes to drafting wide receivers high. Because the last time we drafted one high and it really worked out, his name is James Arthur Monk. Okay? I don't even know if you were born yet, Grant. So with Carnell Tate, he's a terrific player, and there's a lot to like about him. But and I'm going to get to what we were talking about with what Adam thinks. But I'm hoping that we're not going to go for need there. As good as he is, it seems like there are very few blue chippers in this draft, and we happen to be able to get one at 7. And nothing I've read tells me Tate's a blue chipper. You can't pass on him. So with that said, Adam's trying to build a draft and development culture. Okay, he's got a former first in Burks. He's got a former second in Brown. He's got a former third in McCaffrey. He's got a former fourth in Lanning. They're all at different stages of development. It's not linear. So is he hopeful? He is, because for him, the way he wants to do this, for him to be successful, one or more of those guys have to hit. But the fact is, Terry's aging, and we hit on him, by the way, unbelievably in the 3rd round under Rivera.
That's the range I'm talking about, by the way. That 71 range, that's Terry. That's what you're doing. You got to evaluate the fit. You got to be right. But I do think there are gems in that area every single year. By the way, the wide receiver draft history for Washington.
It is astoundingly bad.
It is, but it's also surprising. They have only drafted 2 receivers in the first round since Rod Gardner in 2001. That's 25 years, and they are Josh Doctson in 2016. That's Josh Doctson. And in 2020, Jahan Dotson. That's the entire list.
Yeah.
Rod Gardner, 2001. He was the 15th overall pick. They ended up calling him 50-50 because half the time he worked every time. Josh Doctson, the 22nd pick out of Texas Christian University, 2016. I believe they traded back one spot and then drafted him.
It's either one or two. I can't remember which. But then Olave went in between there.
Wrong draft. That's Jahan Dotson.
So that was for Doctson?
I was talking about
Dotson?
Doctson.
It's very easy for me to confuse them.
Jahan Dotson, they traded from 11 to 16, five spots.
Back several spots.
And then the Saints came up and they ended up getting Olave. But regardless, Dotson, Penn State, 16th overall. Before that, you got to go back to 1995. That's the last time Washington tried to get a receiver in the top 10. Desmond Howard in 92, 4th overall. Michael Westbrook in 95, same pick, 4th overall. That's the entire list. Monk was the 18th pick in the 1980 draft. So since 1964, they have taken a total of 5 receivers in the first round, only 2 of whom were in the top 10.
There's way more second round Taylor Jacobs, Cliff Russell, Devin Thomas, Malcolm Kelly receiver drafts in this organization's history. It has not been good.
He's Danny. I'm Grant. This is The Fan. The NCAA tournament, the bracket's been whittled down to 4. We've got our final 4 teams. Dan Wolken covers college basketball, the NBA draft. I want to try to figure out who helped themselves the most as it pertains to ideally Washington grabbing one of these superstar players this summer. We'll do that next on The Fan.
This update is brought to you by Melwood. Earlier today, the Nationals fell to the Phillies in 10 innings, 6-5. The Nationals had a 5-1 lead after C.J. Abrams had a 3-run homer in the top of the 7th, but the Phillies would chip away with a run in the 7th and the 8th before tying it with 2 runs in the 9th. Then Justin Crawford would have a walk-off single to score Brandon Marsh in the 10th inning. The Nationals fall in the series and the game 6-5 today in 10 innings. They return home 3-3 through their first 2 series against the Cubs and the Phillies. Now they have the home opener on Friday. They'll take on the Dodgers, 105 first pitch right here on the Fan. Hockey, Capitals back in playoff contention, 3 points back of the Blue Jackets for the second wildcard spot with 7 games left after they beat the Flyers yesterday 6-4. Day off today, they'll take on the Devils in New Jersey tomorrow. Basketball, the Wizards taking on the Sixers tonight at Capital One Arena. 7 o'clock tip-off. You can hear the game right here on the Fan. Donate your unwanted vehicle to Melwood and support people with disabilities in your local community. We can pick up as soon as tomorrow. Visit melwood.org or call 1-877-MELWOOD. From the Crop Medcalf 5-Star Sports Desk, I'm Toby Altizer on the Fan.
To go. Got to cut and run through the ball, and who better than this guy?
Get it into Boozer, back for Sarr, ahead, Boozer, that ball deflected and stolen by Mullins. Caravan, 2 seconds, Mullins tosses it up. Oh! It's good! We're point 3! UConn goes in front!
What a moment, what a call. Iron Eagle, CBS. Welcome back, Grant and Danny on the Fan with you for another 30 minutes. Wizards basketball tonight, right here on your flagship Hope, a home for hoops in D.C.
What are you doing to protect your family's assets? As the exclusive sponsor of our show, the law firm of Condori and Murad can help you draft your last will and testament, set up a living trust, or put together a medical power of attorney. Schedule a free consultation with their attorneys today by visiting kmlawyers.com, and be sure to let them know that we sent you. That's kmlawyers.com.
Please, right now, to preview the Final Four, talk all things, not only NCAA tournament, but the early first round projected options for the Wizards with Dan Wolken, senior writer, Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, it's a great Final Four. I think it would have been maybe just a touch more interesting if Duke was in it, because I would have loved to have seen that team go up against this field. But, you know, UConn got the job done, and that'll be an interesting game. I think Michigan, Arizona, what they both bring to the table, they've been arguably the 2 best teams from the very beginning of the season. And so for them to carry it all the way through to April is very impressive. And I think both coaches, to just maintain that level of play and not really go through any big dips or anything like that, is really unusual. So I think that both of those teams are going to put a great effort out on Saturday night, because I think they will probably innately understand that the winner is going to be the favorite in the championship game.
Yeah, what about that, Dan? I always hate this kind of cliche where it's like that's the real national championship game. You know, because those are the 2 best teams. Kind of doesn't do a lot of credit to UConn and Illinois and the gauntlet they both went through. But it does feel that way, that these are the 2 best teams in this tournament, and really, as you said, all season long.
Yeah, I think you could have probably, if you're the NCAA selection committee, seeded this thing a little bit differently, where Arizona is the number 1 seed, which I think they should have been. But at the same time, it's easy to go back in retrospect. And, you know, if Duke had won, it would look maybe a little bit different. You sort of wish that Michigan-Arizona was the championship game. But at the same time, like, this is the way the tournament played out, and the winner is going to have to come back on Monday and regardless of who it is, play a really good team. And we've seen many, many times in this tournament that nobody's infallible.
You know what I've come to the realization of, Dan, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Dan Wolken is with us on G&D talking college hoops. I've always understood that Dan Hurley is a really good college basketball coach. I just think his antics and how unlikable he is takes away from the conversation about what a good coach he is. I know when I see him, I roll my eyes and go, there he is again. But my God, I mean, they have so many different looks and sets and ways to operate, and their offensive playbook seems to be 400 pages deep. He's incredible.
great coach, really, really good coach, really complicated human being. And you can go back throughout his history and you get a little bit of a sense of why he is the way he is. And he's been very open about, sort of being the less talented brother from a basketball standpoint, and how when he goes to Seton Hall and Bobby is, the best point guard in America, like how that, you can understand how that could mentally affect somebody, especially when you consider where he comes from and his father and just the basketball lineage there. And then obviously how that drove him to become the coach he is, but also maybe made him a little bit of a maniac. Look, I don't have any problem with characters, and it's good that college basketball has some of these guys who are authentically themselves and a little bit different. Back when I grew up watching college basketball, that's what it was. And you think of the personalities, we can go on down the line. I mean, there were just so many of them. They were huge stars. These guys today are a little bit different. So it's kind of cool that Hurley's a throwback, but some of the antics and the referee stuff, it's exhausting. Last year I ripped him pretty good after the tournament when he comes off the floor after losing to Florida and, makes a comment in front of, a lot of people able to hear it about, hey, Baylor, don't let them screw you like they screwed us. And, that kind of stuff. It's sore loser stuff that is unbecoming and probably shouldn't be a thing. But, sometimes with people, and I'll include myself in this, you kind of got to take the whole package. For
Totally true. But here's what I wonder about him, because I wonder this with a lot of people. Is he that guy in the moment? And then when you talk to him, like when he's calm,
that sort of topic, because I think he understands that he should not go as far with some of this stuff as he does. But at the same time, he's sort of got this whole apparatus around him. And he's like a very online person, so he's kind of constantly getting, these messages from his own fan base, and he sees the criticism and he gets his back up. So I think he's like really conflicted about all that, and he goes back and forth. It's an interesting dynamic. I mean, he's a fascinating figure, and I think there's just a lot of different layers to that personality, and not all of them are pleasant.
When you look at, as this tournament has kind of gone, I think a lot of people, as soon as there weren't like a bunch of 14 seeds in the Sweet 16, everyone's like, the mid-major's dead. It's all, NIL money now. And we still saw some upsets, but this is, I guess, fairly typical to me of how tournaments usually go. It's not every year you get a George Mason or a VCU or, somebody crazy getting to the Final Four. Just kind of give me a thought, big picture, Dan, on where this tournament is and kind of where college basketball is in this new era of NIL.
Well, I think the concern, and I think it's a fair one for a lot of people, is, hey, like, are we losing the thing that made this event really unique and special? And are we losing it because these mid-major schools have no chance at all to keep good players? And the reality is they don't. Anybody who shows promise at that level is going to get all kinds of offers, probably for most of them, life-changing money to go transfer to a power conference. And that's one of those things that is impacting the overall quality of play at that level. And there's other things, too. I mean, I wrote a big thing on conference realignment that's played into it. There's other factors. But, you do have to acknowledge that there are fewer close games. There's probably less parity. And what does that mean for the overall tournament and the product? It's an interesting discussion, but at the end of the day, we had a great Elite Eight for the most part, and we're going to have a great Final Four, so it's hard to complain too much.
Dan Wolken with us here on G&D. I want to get to a couple of these headliners up here at the top of what will be the NBA draft. Give me your thought on Cameron Boozer. I've loved his game, Dan, from afar. He's so smooth, and he just plays bully ball a lot. But maybe that's kind of a knock now, where it's like if you're not a 6'10" wing, do you even lift, bro? You know what I mean? Kind of like the way the new league is at this point. How do you see him as a pro?
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate because for one thing, this is a great draft, and there's other options, and there's going to be other options even at the power forward position. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of, hey, is this your taste in player? And it's going to be fit dependent for some people as they evaluate him and figure out whether he's the guy. And he does have great fundamentals and great intangibles, and he does use his body in a really interesting way. And he's strong, but obviously at the NBA level, he's not going to be nearly as formidable from a strength standpoint because everybody's, strong in that league, especially in the post. So, yeah, like he could be a little bit divisive, but at the end of the day, I think he's still a top 3 pick, and I think he'll probably be a really good NBA player.
Dan Wolken is with us on Grant and Danny. You've got the number 1 pick. Who you taking?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm glad that I am not an NBA GM who has to make that decision because you could certainly, I think the banter's probably and obviously he's got great size as well for a wing. Everybody wants a great wing, and I do think it's hard. I think it's probably the position in the NBA where, if you have that elite wing guy, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape. You can find bigs. There's a ton of point guards out there, but that true great, big wing is such a commodity that I think he probably edges out. Peterson, there's issues with him. Obviously Boozer, there's some issues with him. Acuff, there's issues with him. So I think overall he's probably just the guy who should be number 1.
So going to Peterson, the talent is undeniable, Dan, but ... How do you view all the, I don't even know what to call it, the stuff surrounding him?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I've heard NBA GMs and talk about before, you're not, when you're drafting in that position, you aren't just drafting the player based on what you saw in college or wherever they played. You're drafting based on what you project they're going to be when they, fully mature, when they have $10 million in their bank account, how much basketball means to them, how hard they're going to work at it, all those things. And so there's a lot of probably things that he's shown that would give decision makers in the NBA some pause, some concern for what that looks like in 5 years. So, yeah, I don't want to judge the kid, and it certainly looked to me like he played injured or was trying to do the best he could a lot of times with a limited physical state. But yeah, he doesn't really come across as, that competitive maniac type of guy that you kind of want, right? So, good luck. That just, everyone's got to evaluate that in the NBA, and I don't know where I stand on it, but, for a GM, it's either going to, get him fired or bring in a piece that helps win a championship.
Dan Wolken covers college hoops, joining us on G&D. Last one for me, favorite storyline as we get ready to tee up these final 4 games into the weekend that you're tracking.
Well, the one for me is maybe not the best for Arizona fans, but I mean this Tommy Lloyd situation with North Carolina and the fact that he kind of refuses to say that he's going to come back to Arizona. Kind of unusual for these situations. He's not sort of getting mad about the questions. He's just sort of taking them and saying, my focus is here, and kind of ignoring the other stuff, with the implication being that he's very much negotiating with Arizona or interested in Carolina or using Carolina as leverage. It's a pretty fascinating situation to me, and he is playing it to the absolute hilt.
Dan, great with us, man. Enjoy the Final Four in the Natty.
You got it. Thanks.
Thanks, bud.
There's Dan Wolken, CBS Sports, covers college basketball. We've got ourselves, Yahoo Sports, really, really good Final Four, though. This is going to be an outstanding game.
I'm with you. And there's pro prospects all abound here. This Keaton Wagler kid that didn't start off with the pedigree that, the DeBonsas, the Petersons, the Boozers of the world have. All he does is make every play well, and he seems to never miss for an Illinois team that kind of an upstart. They got out of Florida's bracket because Iowa took care of the hard work for them, but they're good in their own right. That's a really good Big Ten team that we saw a bunch.
Do it. I think they probably win that game, but every time you think UConn's going to lose,
count them out at your own peril.
They got an answer for somebody. They're just hard to kill. That is a championship club, to your point. The Capitals, speaking of teams that are hard to kill, how about what they've done here? Winning 3 in a row, 5 of 7. They are back in the mix. They're off tonight. They are going to play tomorrow in Jersey. The Devils have not been very good and are not a particularly good team. That's a game the Caps have to win. Regulation or not, I guess, doesn't matter as much because the Devils aren't right there battling with them. But that having been said, you need those 2 points tomorrow. And then they've got a Saturday game, which will be much more difficult, hosting the Buffalo Sabres at home. But if they can win tomorrow, things start to get interesting. If they win Thursday, Saturday, Devils, Sabres, they get 4 straight points. They might be at that moment either tied for or right in the thick of things within a point or two of the playoffs. They're only, right now, just a few points off the pace. They've got themselves back in the conversation.
So now, though, finally, by the way, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you're finally in a normal games played situation where you don't have to do that stupid dance anymore where you go, I know the Capitals have a point more than the Red Wings, or this was a couple weeks ago, but remember, they played 7 more games somehow because of the quirky NHL schedule. It's now pretty much equalized, so the numbers are the numbers. To your point, they're a point behind Ottawa, Detroit, and Philadelphia. 1 point behind all 3 of those teams who are just 2 points behind Columbus. They're right there.
Yeah, easiest way to say it is, so everybody knows 8 teams make the playoffs, right? Everybody's essentially vying for right now what is basically the last couple of wild card spots. And it doesn't look like, the other, maybe the 7 seed was catchable, but the Islanders here have hit a skid where they've lost 2 in a row. They're just 5-5 in their last 10. So the Capitals have gained ground there. And the Columbus Blue Jackets, who the Capitals still play, only have 88 points. So they're 3 back of Columbus, the 8 seed. They're 4 back of the Islanders, the 7 seed. The Islanders have played 1 more game than the Capitals, though, to your game-in-hand point. They played the most games of anybody. The Caps are even with Columbus right now. So it's a 3-point deficit. But what's fascinating, Danny, is they still play Columbus. It'd be the last game of the season. So you don't have to surpass them. You need to get to within 2 points of them. That's it.
That's it.
Because you're going to have the tiebreaker over them. And this is the point I want to drill down on. The tiebreaker is RW, which is regulation wins, okay? The Capitals have 32 regulation wins. The Flyers, who are ahead of them in the standings, only have 23. Think about the discrepancy there. That's insane. But they're 1 point behind the Flyers who they beat yesterday. They'll have the tiebreaker over the Flyers. They'll have the tiebreaker over the Red Wings. They'll have the tiebreaker over the Blue Jackets. They will definitely have the tiebreaker over the Islanders as well. The only team they wouldn't have a tiebreaker over, potentially, is the Ottawa Senators. And they still could. They're even with 32 regulation wins. They just right now don't know for sure that they'll have that tiebreaker. Of all the teams ahead of them and right there in the mix for really the 7 through 12 teams in the Eastern Conference. So it's a super tiebreaker-friendly metric. If you look at like goals differential for and against, only the Senators of all the teams we're talking about have had a better season than the Capitals. Their bugaboo in the end that's going to cost them, because I still think they'll be on the outside looking in narrowly, just based on the math. For the first time today, they have a double-digit % chance to get in. That changes every single night if they get a little bit of help. If they get some help tonight, and then when they play Thursday, that chance could go up to, like 25, 30% for the first time. It changes that much. But they just needed to win some of these stupid shootouts.
Yes.
This skills challenge where you play your 5 minutes of overtime, then you go to the shootout. They were the worst team in the league for the majority of this season in shootouts. They lost their first 6, I think it was. So they're 2-6. So they only have 2 wins in shootouts. The Flyers, as an example,
and I know it's a lot. It's dizzying if you're not looking at it right in front of you. It's really hard to remember who to root against because there's like 6 teams, and it's like you kind of want Pittsburgh now because they're solidified. The teams they're competing directly with, you have to climb over so many bodies at this point. But the point you made, I think, is a really good one.
I'm going to give teams 5 teams to root against.
Mm-hmm.
Islanders, Blue Jackets, Senators, Red Wings, Flyers. That's the entire list.
And if one of them plays each other, I don't know what you hope for.
What you definitely hope for is no overtime.
Yeah.
Because if it's overtime, both teams accumulate points. So you want a regulation result. Now, of the teams they're behind, they only play the Blue Jackets in that final game. The Penguins, you're not catching. You play them 2 times. The Maple Leafs, who have taken on water, and Austin Matthews is out for the year, you play. The Rangers are terrible. The Sabres are really good. But they can't help themselves with other head-to-head matchups other than that Blue Jackets game in Game 82.
If they get close, that's the point. This feels, again, kind of like that sneak in the postseason run where it was pretty improbable here in not too distant memory. But if they get within a game of Columbus and they win it in regulation, they go to the postseason, basically, right? And that was unthinkable a few days ago. It's still a long shot because, again, there's so many teams to climb over, but there is a shot now.
Well, and they're playing good teams.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying, well, if they win 5 of their last 7, they have 7 left.
Against the good teams in the
they
conference.
They got a really good chance to get in. Well, okay, that's not insurmountable. And by the way, if you want to be a playoff team, you got to do some hard things, right? But they've already won 5 of 7. So what you're really talking about there is basically winning like 10 of 14. Do they have that kind of roster, that kind of team? Are they wearing down? The one thing you are seeing, I think, is that this team, which has been very old and a little bit slower over the many, many years here, it seems like their kids are not really falling apart at the end of this year. Cole Hudson and Ryan Leonard and Justin Sordiff and Connor McMichael and some of these guys.
Skating around a little bit.
They got the legs, which they haven't had in the past. So only reason I want them to get in, I don't know that they can go on a run. I don't know if they're going to give Carolina or Buffalo or whoever a run for their money if this thing goes forward. But I want it, it's spring. It's the old rite of spring around these parts. It's the fun of playoff hockey. Give me a series. Extend this thing. I enjoy watching this team. It's my favorite thing to do at night every night is just turn on the TV. But only the Canadiens and the Bruins right now are hotter in the Eastern Conference than the Capitals, and they're doing it thanks to Alex Ovechkin. Right after,
yeah, by the way, that's the story to me.
We had this conversation, and the conversation remains the same for me. His season is his season. The role is the role. He struggles on the defensive end in some other areas. But we talked about maybe this being the end of the road for Ovi. He has completely gone on a tear. We should have had that conversation sooner.
Yeah, he's doing the Ovi bit like this every time. Like he's Jason from Friday the 13th,
It's
man.
so true.
Every time we're like, all right, it's time. Kick some dirt out of him. He's too old. It's time for 7 goals in 7 games.
Why didn't we do it? We know this.
We do know it.
We should have just done it a month ago. 5 goals in 3 games, 6 goals in 5 games, 7 goals in his last 7 games for the 40-year-old Alex Ovechkin carrying the boys down the stretch.
Good Lord. Just, honestly, it's stupid. It's stupid. But, and here he is. And every time he does a new one of these, you just go, we should never take it for granted. We should never, ever, 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 for even a split second, not do anything other than just drink it in with our eyes. Because it's so special. It's so absurd. A 40-year-old dude skating around with these, dudes half his age who were twice as fast. He's just this bored shark who's just hanging out and decides, I'll just put a bunch of goals in. I'll wait for right now. Now I'll do it when we need it. Amazing.
It's a fun little DC sports time, though. We've got the Caps making a push, trying to get into the playoff conversation. The Nats open their home slate with opening day in DC. Their home opener on Friday at Nationals Park will be at Tap 99 after the game. Of course, the Wizards are
from tomorrow, right?
Yeah, Thursday, the 23rd. So we're right at 3 weeks away, man. It's a good time to be a DC sports fan.
A lot of rebuilding. So it'd be nice if we get one playoff team with the Capitals. They get in there.
I didn't say a winning time.
Right.
It's an entertaining,
it's a building towards something time.
fun time.
It's a foundational time. There we go. That's a word.
He's a fun guy.
He's a fun guy.
I appreciate you guys checking us out. 2 o'clock tomorrow for the show. We're